welcome to the replay viewers. If this is the first time, hello Felicia. I've seen some names pop on. Hello Portia, how are you? Hello you guys. Today we are talking all about parenting from wholes, H-O-L-E-S, or from wholeness. Such a fun play on words, but a really good topic. Hello Funk Master, hello Be Free Project. Thank you so much for joining, you guys. Hello, Portia. Yes, hi, dear. I finally get to hear you. I have missed you. Yes. Hold on. Let me turn this around. Hi, guys. Hello. How are you? Hi, Siobhan. Hello. I'm so glad you're here. Felicia says, hey, hello. I've been a while since I caught you live. Yes. Yes, I should tell you all that last week was, I did less scoping last week. I actually ended up getting my eyes dilated on Thursday. Probably TMI. Thanks, Funkmaster808, for sharing. I love you guys. Hello, Fred MD. Thanks for joining. Ended up getting my eyes dilated, so I couldn't really scope on Thursday. Hi, Jeanette. So glad you're here. Hi, SB Williams, thank you so much for joining, you guys. So for those of you that are new to my scope, hello, my name is Brooke-Sidney. My site and company is called Bella and the Babe, and it's all about empowering authentic motherhood. And so every Monday, I do what's called a Conscious Parent Book Club. And it's a scope where I talk all about this amazing book by Dr. Shefali Sabari called The Conscious Parent. The author was featured on Oprah. It's actually one of her favorites because the interesting thing about this book is that although it has parent in the title and it's really good for parents to read, it's also really good for any adult really to read so that they can learn how to parent themselves, how they can learn how to grow themselves up, both physically and spiritually and mentally, right? It's all about getting rid of this emotional baggage. Siobhan says, I have to remember to pick that book up. Yes, get it on Kindle, listen to the audiobook. It is really, really good. Today we are talking all about chapter 10, and the formal chapter title is, Are You Parent from Wholeness Instead of Wounds? But I decided that this chapter is really all about, are we parenting from our wholes, like H-O-L-E-S? And I think about that in the sense of, most of the time our parents maybe didn't parent consciously, and it wasn't a deliberate let's not give our children what they need, or let's harm our children. No, right? Majority of our parents, if we have ended up being parented from wholes, it was because they lacked something. They either lacked consciousness and did it unconsciously, or they didn't know any better, you guys. Like oftentimes you can only parent from what you know. Thanks so much for the hearts. So if something that I'm saying makes sense to you, please give hearts. Oftentimes you'll hear things that make you go, I'm not sure what I feel about that particular thought. And that's why I like this book, because although I don't agree with everything it says, not like 100%, there are so many good things in it that are either philosophies or practices that I think are good to try and apply, or the book has pushed me to think about the way that I do want to parent if it's an area that I disagree in, or an area where I'm like, I'm not sure. Thanks for the hearts, guys. So parenting from our wholeness instead of our wholes is a super big chapter. There are like 7 or 8 points. Thanks to Keela for joining. There's like 7 or 8 points. So I figured today, let's talk about 4, because 4 is enough for anybody on a Monday evening. And I'm so happy that you guys are here. Hello. And I definitely want to encourage you to speak up and jump in and have a conversation. Don't feel like you have to hold questions to the end. Just jump in and raise your thoughts. I'd love to hear all of your parenting wisdom and how these thoughts resonate with you. So basically, the most important point that we want to kind of get out of this chapter, I think, is that when we as parents become so wrapped up in our own pain that we're unable to meet our children's needs. And when our children's needs are not met, hello, get real and be healed. I love that handle. When our children's needs don't get met the way they deserve to get met, then our children grow up feeling not only empty, but split into pieces. And I love this because a lot of times we think that our kids or even ourselves, if we have gone through some of these things, that we, our essential self is somehow like broken or messed up or not whole anymore. But I love how Dr. Shefali says it's basically, Felicia says, broken parents can create broken children. Exactly. That she says that we're not even just empty, but it's broken into pieces. And I love this. She says the essential self was never created. Like, it was not even there to be destroyed, you guys. It was not even there to be destroyed because the foundation essentially was not built for the child's essential self. I really feel like that's deep. I really feel like that is the heart of the work. That's the reason why most of us as parents are trying to do this work, because we've learned that we need to provide, whether you look at it as an attachment theory or whatever, we need to provide that level of support and understanding and acceptance for our children so they can develop their essential selves. And when we don't, we're seeing that, brokenness and not wholeness. Tequila says children are created whole. Some parents create the holes. Right, exactly. But them learning to understand who they are at their essential self. That's what I think we as parents help them to do. That's part of the reason why we're here, to help us guide that. So the first point is really just understanding the importance of unconditionally accepting our children. Dr. Shefali does a great job in this book, in this chapter, really giving examples, because I think that is where a lot of the points are illuminated. Because in the small points, it's often hard. Thanks for the hearts, guys. In the small points, sometimes it's hard to really understand how it gets played out. How one parent's wound can then translate to their child and even their grandchildren, because it gets generationally passed down. So she gives a really good example of Samantha. I think it's like page 125-ish. And Samantha, because her parents weren't stable or present, she grew up thinking that life was inherently unstable and untrustworthy. Like, she couldn't trust life. She couldn't trust herself. So she spent her whole entire childhood taking care of herself. And I know there's people out there today that basically were their own parent, right? That they had to, as a child, take care of themselves. The moment when, you are supposed to be covered. When you as a child, you're supposed to have covering. You're supposed to have safety and security. A lot of people grow up without that. And because she learned that life was untrustworthy, she squashed her own needs. And so she became essentially emotionally paralyzed. And sadly, Dr. Shefali shares that she was never in a relationship for longer than 5 years because she couldn't trust anything, right? Or 5 months, not even 5 years. And she never even became a mother because she couldn't get into a relationship. So it is so sad how this can play itself out. But I feel like this was a really good example of just the feeling of a lack of security. Hello, August and Pepper. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks, you guys. And if you think people could benefit from this, please do share. You can share it on Twitter, you can Facebook now, or with all your followers, and definitely give hearts if it makes sense. But really the big point here is how important it is to unconditionally accept our children. And the sad fact is that no matter how much our external world changes, this childhood pain lingers until we deal with it, until we heal it. And really nothing, can you believe this? Not even a great spouse or even having wonderful children can really actually heal or compensate for the yearning of a child who didn't have acceptance. Portia says, absolutely. So it's really, really important that we think about how we show acceptance to our children, how we are present with them, and how we can make sure we don't put anything that we have, any holes, I'm sure, because we're human, we're gonna have things, right? But making sure that we're, doing the best we can not to parent from that place. So she talks about a variety of ways that parents from wounded psyches can put these emotional mark on their children, and she goes through a lot of them. And we're only going to go through a couple. I'm breaking this chapter up into 2 segments. So the second point, which is one of the variety of ways that we can harm our children, and it's not funny, it's just that it's so much, you guys, it's so much. The second thing is if you grew up feeling like you weren't good enough. Essentially, this is really about the importance of validating our children. And she gives a really good example of how this all plays out. She talks about this guy named Jonathan. And Jonathan grew up missing out chili Moses. I feel that way still. Exactly. Because when we have, I love that you said that, because when we have these types of experiences that occur in our childhood, they linger. It's exactly what Dr. Shefali is saying. They until we are able to work through them, they linger. It is a deep pain. So I'm so glad that you share that. And there are so many of us that have some sort of wound. If you didn't have a wound, God bless you. Like, that is amazing. But most parents, especially generations before us, they weren't parenting this way. And they've passed down parenting the best way they knew how, right? And then of course there's life and curveballs and, growing up without a father or growing up without, there's all these different things, Hawkins and Peppers, and we carry them and often wear that experience like a badge. Yes, that's very true. Sometimes we can, put on a hard shell to really start to create, to make ourselves feel better. When we don't feel good about what has happened to us, sometimes we will wear it like a badge. It's how we try to make a harm into something that, is not so harmful. The way sometimes we can change bad experiences and make them try to look good, but it's still underlying feeling. I grew up with my dad. Oh, I just missed that comment. Please post it again. I want to hear I want to hear this. But really, it's so important to actually understand what we've gone through so then we can address it. So back to the importance of validating our children, she gives a really good example of Jonathan. And Jonathan basically missed out on any sort of validation that he needed as a child. And so because of that, he couldn't hold a job. She says, I grew up with my dad saying I was a mistake to this world. Oh my goodness. Oh no, I know. I'm so sorry. And I love how Augustin Pepper said, you deserve better than that. You definitely deserve better than that. But it's so powerful that you are able to see it for what it was and know that that is not your truth. That is not your truth, right? Like, first of all, God doesn't make any mistakes. First of all. That's first and foremost. So you are not a mistake. You are a God-given gift to this earth. He is now, rest in peace. Rest in peace for him. But you are a gift to this earth. You are a gift to all of us. And so that is not the truth. And unfortunately, he was not in a place for whatever reason to be able to provide those type of truths and pour into you in that way. But please do know that that is not the case. That is not the truth. He used to drink as well. Exactly. Yes, exactly. So, it might have been something that his father may have done to him, right? A lot of times, drinking to excess, drinking a lot, those type of things are generational. You often see that he could have inherited it. So it could be a multitude of things. But my only goal is for you to know that that is not you and that you are not a mistake and that, you have power already in knowing that that was not what you were supposed to learn from him. That was not what you were supposed to learn from him. So, oh my goodness. But back to Jonathan. Portia says, I just saw an Instagram post that showed a picture about the words we speak shape our children. Exactly, Portia. Exactly. Our words can either uplift or harm our children. It's hardly any neutral. And so we definitely have to be careful about the words that we speak to our children and speak unto their lives and speak about their lives, because I believe that we can decree and declare a thing. And so we don't want to speak certain things and certain messages over our children's lives. Thanks, I'm going to follow you. You're great. Oh, thank you. We don't want to speak certain things into our children's lives because it becomes a thought that they keep thinking and then they believe it. That's what a belief is, a thought that we keep thinking over and over. So it is really, really, really important that they get the right messages and hear the right words. Thanks so much for the hearts, you guys. So in this example, this guy did not get any validation, and he couldn't hold a job, right? Because he never got any validation. He couldn't hold a job. He was basically always waiting for the other shoe to fall. You know, nothing ever proved satisfying. And at the end, he became basically unhireable, right? And so then he developed all these other problems, and it was all like with his family and his kids, and it all really stemmed, thanks so much for the hearts, guys, for this lack of validation that he had as a child. And then he basically expected to be betrayed. He expected for life not to meet his expectations. And so his life has turned out this way. And I mean, honestly, she didn't even give us a good, I felt, as I look back over the chapter, I was like, poor Jonathan, like we didn't even get there was no good story, right? You know how stories always end and it's like, and happily ever after? There's no happily ever after for poor Jonathan. And so I think it's really, really important that we look at the damaging effect of not validating our children, and feeling validation for ourselves, right? Now that especially that most of us are parents. So when we grow up, when we aren't feeling good enough, we can displace this feeling of inadequacy onto the world around us, right? We create a persona, often of like grandiosity, like everything is okay with me, everything is wrong with the world, right? Like everybody else is the problem. When in fact, it's really from our own lack of self-worth that we then create this ego-driven persona that tries to mask. It's basically a mask that nothing is wrong with us. But that backfires because underneath the truth is still there. Thanks, Viva LeBrand, for joining. Underneath it, it's still lack of self-worth is still there. So the really important thing to note is that, again, these type of behaviors, this lack of validation for our children can result in these type of effects in our children. And then they can become parents and it just starts the whole cycle over and over again. I think she says that a lack of self-worth can result from having insufficient acceptance from our parents, or it could be even the result of being generational curses. Exactly. Of being coddled and praised beyond what is appropriate. Or some children end up feeling like their parents' puppet, and then they just try to fulfill their own ego needs rather than meet their own. So there's a variety of kind of problems and challenges that can result from our children not feeling like they were ever validated. And that's simply just saying like, you're enough, right? You're enough. That's it. The other example that she gave was the Natasha example, and this was a situation where the person tied their entire, and August says, and that can even lead to mental illness as well. Exactly. A lot of these things lead to narcissism, sociopath. All of those are mental illnesses, and some of those are created by the way that we parent our children, especially as we get to some of the ones further on in the chapter where we aren't telling our children no. They never hear no because we didn't get something. So then we want to overgive to our children. They don't hear no. And so they don't understand that other people have needs. But I'm jumping ahead. But yes, like there are so many different types of mental illnesses or even just mental challenges, depression, things that can come, seasonal depressions and things that can come in and out of our life. And seasonal, I mean by time of our lives, not like seasonal affective disorder, like sad. What is this book? This book is The Conscious Parent. The Conscious Parent by Dr. Shefali Sabari. As you can see, mine's like all marked up. But there's another quick example was the Natasha example. Hers was even more extreme in a sense. Basically, she had learned from her parents that her self-worth was tied to her surroundings, to her possessions. So she did not feel like a good person unless she had all the best things. And that can happen, right? Like we often think that the people that are born to modest beginnings or humble beginnings have it the hardest, and sometimes they do. But sometimes, depending upon the messages, a lot of people think that way. Yes, it's so true. sometimes born into an environment where you have a lot and you're told that that is the requirement for happiness, or that is the requirement for you to feel safe and secure, as it was, I think, in Natasha's example, can place other types of stresses and challenges and really not that level of security that children need. So basically, she had inherited the message that her whole sense of worth was intertwined with her possessions. And so her parents were never even able to pursue their lives that they wanted because they were always tied to saving money and money. Portia says, yes, this is an example we don't hear about it much, but it's happened so much. It's Portia, yes, I don't think that we do. I think depending upon our socioeconomic backgrounds, people don't talk about that because, it's like, oh, poor little rich girl, or, poor little this. Hello, Krista from Toronto. Finally caught your Scope Live. Hi, Krista. I'm so happy that you're joining us. Thank you so much. Woo! So happy that you are here. Thank you for jumping on the Scope. So we're just talking about how, sometimes as children, we can receive messages from our parents that our self-worth can be tied to, believe it or not, our surroundings or our possessions. And so how this one played out for Natasha was that her husband lost his job. They then had to move in with her in-laws, and she thought, honestly, the world had ended. She thought that life was essentially over. She went into full-blown depression. Hi, Miles. Not to say that was not an emotional, a big change, but it wasn't as big as she made it because her self-worth was tied to her luxurious home and having the awesome person, having all these things, and definitely not living with her in-laws. Hello, Miles. So, she didn't even realize for so long, thanks so much for inviting followers, that her parents had laid this groundwork for her to tie her own self-worth to what she owned. Not who she was innately, but what she had possessed, right? Like her house or her clothing or her car. But this one does have a happy ending. Hello, happy Monday evening to you too. This one does have a happy ending. It was basically that once she realized that was her parents' message, that was her parents' script, she was able to write herself a new one, you guys. And that is the beauty of becoming aware and conscious of all of it. Like, she basically went to therapy and she learned that's not my life. Like, that is what my parents, gave me, but that's not my story. Creating your own narrative. Exactly, Portia, exactly. And so the beauty of this story, I love it. This one had a happy ending, was that her and her husband were able to repair their relationship, move out of their in-laws, and they actually started a nonprofit to benefit single women to help them get back on their feet. All of this from becoming conscious of our unconscious messages that we've received. August, I say that all the time, not my story. Exactly. I say something similar, I'm like, that's not my monkey. That's not my monkey. That's not my monkey. That's not my craziness. That might be yours. That's not my monkey. So yes, don't own the stuff that is not yours. So the third thing that we're going to talk about, and this is the last one, I told you and there's still like 3 or 4 more points. The last one is that if you learn to please others to earn their approval, you don't want to do this. Portia says, that's not my monkey. I love it. Yes, that's what I say. There's a funny little meme. I'll have to find it and post it for you guys. It's hilarious, but it's about, that's not my monkey. So this point is all about helping our children to live authentically, because basically we know that children who grow up with parents who sidestep their own authenticity basically become phony too. I mean, that's the end result. They camouflage their own feelings, they camouflage their own needs, all about pleasing others, and they learn to emulate this phony style of living. They don't know how. And so they often become pleasers, and they just cater to others for their sake of approval. Fake family. Exactly. We all know those people. And my heart goes out to them, right? Because none of them are living in their truth, right? And the danger of this, like, we don't often think about the dangers or the challenges or the drawbacks, is that when our children see us place others' needs before their own, then they learn that you value others more than yourself. That, that's dangerous, because then you start basing your identity on your relationships. I have lived there before. Yes, a lot of us have learned to be people pleasers. Portia, a lot of us. I went through that. A lot of us want to, especially when we have parents that expect such great things out of us and they do such great things and we're like, okay, I'm living to please my father. No, we can't do that. We can't do that. But it's power in seeing it. It's power in knowing it. And the thing about it is that we can only do it for so long, because if we are only living to please others, we're not getting our needs met, and we can only do that for so long without having some care back poured into ourselves. So it just leads to resentment. It can't go on. And so there's a danger, and this is something I started talking about earlier. I can't remember if it was August and Pepper that alluded to that. eBerry, hi, thank you for your chat. By the way, love your shirt. Yes, elephants. Yes. Oops, I have to be careful about scoping too much, but I point that out that they are watching TV. Yes, or until someone calls you on it. August and Pepper says that. Yes, you know what? Yes, elephants. I love elephants. But yes, it's so true. It's so true. So the danger, okay, so we want to think about how could this harm our children, right? Besides them being able to not know how to recognize their own needs because they're focused on other people's needs, but it actually can turn into us trying to please our children too much. We go the other extreme, which I was like, that's a really interesting point, because I think that there are a lot of people that had things happen to them and then say, I'm not going to do that, but they then go to the extreme other end and do something else. And the something else in this particular case is overly catering to the needs of our children, so much that our kids don't know how to take care of themselves. Or we overindulge in them so much that it sends them the message that it's okay for them to take advantage of us. It's okay. And it allows them to think that they are the center of the world because we have made them the center of ours. And that's emotionally unhealthy. And that's the recipe for basically raising a narcissist, who imagines that the world revolves around them. So it's really, really critical that we examine what's going on. Thanks so much for the hearts, guys, that we examine so much what's going on within ourselves, because it can, it really can unconsciously lead to all the things that we're talking about here. Miles says, winter's here. We need to rethink some family together activities. Exactly. And thank you, Nothing But God, for joining. Thank you so much. So it's really, really critical that we think about boundaries, right? Because when we're not unable to create healthy boundaries for ourselves, our children don't see it, and then they learn to disrespect our boundaries, and then they come to believe that their space and their needs are more important than those around them. And honestly, if we don't say no to them, they're going to be surprised when the world says no, because they're going to hear it. And I think if you guys have been following like a lot of the different news, especially if you have friends that are teachers, a lot of the children that are growing up today, even some of the millennials supposedly, don't understand no, and think that they can go from being, in college and learning about something to tomorrow I'm CEO, because they've been overly praised and overly coddled and overly told that they were doing a great job. Just, you're doing a great job. So August and Pepper says the kids that can't take rejection, fighting and shooting up schools. Exactly. They were not told no, and don't know that the world really is not all about them. So that's a lot. I feel like that's a lot for today, you guys. So there's still so much else that we can talk about in this chapter. But just to do a quick recap, we talked about the importance of unconditionally accepting our children. We talked about how yes, you've got to get that book, August and Pepper, definitely get the book. And we talked about how not doing these things, like accepting our children and helping our children really understand their essential self that's inside of them. How if we don't do that, it can lead to growing up feeling you're not good enough, you're not validating our children, the importance of doing that. Hi, Big Sub, thanks for joining. We learned and talked about having our self-worth being tied to our possessions, growing up feeling inadequate about the world around us. August Peppers, being a conscious parent is an even greater challenge when you're solo parenting. Yes, I think that is true. I think that's true. But there's also, there's so many challenges with parenting. The name of the book is The Conscious Parent by Dr. Shefali Savari. There's so many challenges because even when you are co-parenting, a lot of Dr. Shefali's questions come in when she gets parents that are on two different pages. Hi, Brad. Thanks for joining. They're on two different pages because let's think about it. We have the mother that's trying to consciously parent, and you have the father that's trying to do something entirely of his own. Hello. So there's all these challenges. Parenting is right with challenges. That's why this book is awesome, because it encourages us to really grow ourselves up. And by even doing a little bit of work on making ourselves more aware of what we're bringing to the table in this parent-child relationship, we can change a lot. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. You're welcome. So, I'm going to leave it at that for today. Know that there's going to be a part 2. I always scope about the conscious parent. We're actually on chapter 10, but it's not too late to join in. But I always scope about the conscious parent on Mondays. Always scope about it sometime between usually 4:30 and 5 Pacific time till about 6 Pacific time. Yeah, so glad you're here, Brad. Thanks for joining. I have a mama community for those of you that want to. Thanks, Portia. Thanks. Oh, you're so sweet. I have a mama community for those of you that want to continue talking about the conscious parent. Miles says it will help them to decide college or university or trade school has to match their inclination. Yes, exactly, Miles. How we validate our children, how we get them to have their own self-worth. This is actually a large part of the section 2 of the book. Really helps them be able to understand their own dreams, to be able to guide themselves. It helps them know their life path, right? It helps them feel like they can trust themselves. That's the best way to put it. That they can trust themselves and their choices. And that all comes from having validation and acceptance from our parents. And have by the courage to go. Exactly. Yes? August and Pepper, tell me your names. Yes, and have the courage to go for it. Exactly it. We're going to talk about next week, like the power of guilt and all these different. Thank you for this. You're welcome. You know, the power of guilt and how that plays out. But it really, without these things, Takesha, I love it. Thank you, Takesha, for joining today. I've loved your interaction. Thank you so much. That how we give them this level of support, of acceptance and validation, really internally provides the foundations for them to trust themselves. And that's why it's so key, right? And that's why, parenting with authenticity is so important, so they can be authentic to themselves. I love this stuff. Yes, I'm so happy you're here, Takesha. Thank you so much for joining. I have to purchase that book. Yes, Portia. Get it on Kindle. Get it on audiobook. I know you're so busy. Get it on audiobook. It's on audiobook. Tisha says, people say I take it too seriously. No, we all have our things. We all have our passions. So if parenting and obviously it's one of mine. So I say go for it. We need more people thinking about it. It's really helpful. I love it when even grandparents jump on my scope, because even just having someone with that type of thinking in their life is great. I'm going to Audible right after this. I have it on Audible too. I mean, that's how I heard it originally. And then I bought the book and tell them no to too much sugar at Halloween. Exactly. I hope you guys all had a great Halloween. Yeah, if you celebrate that, yes. My child had no sugar. I said, no, I'm not giving, you had no candy. You had no candy. So, yeah, he doesn't even know that he missed out on something. But anyway, if you want to talk more about this, I know Takesha, some other people on here are really enjoying this conversation. You should join the mama community. It's completely free. It's at bit.ly. Oh wait, no, I'm showing you the wrong thing. Goodness gracious. Mama community, bit.ly/CP book club. That takes you right to joining the book club so that you can talk more about it. And then Conscious Parent book. If you still don't have it, I'd love for you to get it in my little store. It's at bit.ly/mama phase. And then you can also just check out all the great parenting stuff. I have books in there, just mama must-haves, some kid must-haves, just tons of fun stuff that has helped me in this journey. HFG is faith, for we are hungry for group faith, God, in God for everything. Yes, I know glory in God for everything. Yes, I am on IG, Instagram. It is Carmel Bella. It's my same handle that it is on Periscope. You can find me on Instagram. I'd love for you to follow me. If you check out my Instagram, you guys, you'll see my son. He was a puppy. He was a puppy for this Halloween, and he had a really good time. We only went to a few houses. We only did a few houses, but he got to have the experience. Sugar makes my 14-year-old daughter a little nuts. Exactly. I can only imagine giving my basically 2-year-old some sugar. Bad says, you got a puppy? No, my son dressed up as a puppy. Takesha, he's almost 2 years old. Yes. So definitely, guys, if you aren't following me, make sure you're following me. Please share to your followers if you think that this could help someone. Sugar makes them all nuts. Oh, my son is too. Yes, Takesha, definitely consider joining the mama community. There's no requirement. And also I tell people it's okay if you haven't read, because we all have mama wisdom and we're all just learning. So feel free to join that. And my site again is bellaandthebabe.com. I've loved talking with you guys. Miles says she came back with 6 pounds of candy. It's locked up. Yes. Miles, have you heard about the whole thing where you can actually offer your children the opportunity to trade their candy for like something else, like maybe it's a book or something else they wanted? Brad says, I'm Skingle, but this is a cool scope. Well, I'm so glad you're here, Brad. That's awesome. Thank you for joining. Thank you so much for joining. I love it. So I will not hold you up. Yes, Miles, it's a really cool thing because it also affirms their ability to make choices. So they could even have a couple pieces of candy and then turn over that bucket of candy for something else. Like, maybe it's a book, maybe it's a CD or whatever, but something that is not sugar. Last year they gave pot candy. Yeah, to candy. Yeah, no, yeah. Yeah, Mom says, I'll try it. Yeah. It's just some of the ideas that are floating around to help out with this, time of the year when the kids want the candy, and most of us are like, no. So anyway, have a wonderful Monday evening. Thank you so much for joining me. If you want to follow me, please go to my Instagram, go to my website, bellaandthebabe.com, and I will see you guys. I'll probably be on Thursday. Thanks so much, Miles. Thank you so much for all of you joining. Talk to you later.